kick us off.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and great to be along today. I'm John Lachlan. I grew up in Napier, moved here when I was about 8 years old, and went through a couple of primary schools, intermediate school and high school here. Went away, came back, went away for 12 years, and 32 years ago came back to Hawke's Bay. My wife and I established our own Askearn winery out near Havelock North. So long connection with the region and special connection with Napier, background there. So other things, when I came back to Hawke's Bay 32 years ago, I came back as the Chief Financial Officer of the Richmond Meat Company. Did 4 years in that role and 6 years as CEO prior to it becoming part of Silver Fern Farms. And for the last 23 years, I've been a professional director, serving on a lot of different boards. So one of the highlights was chairing Zespri for 5 years, and in my time I managed to get the Turners and Growers Attack on the Single Desk and PSA. So, but these days I chair the Rocket Apple Company here in Hawke's Bay. I chair Powerco, which is a major utility business around the North Island, or parts of the North Island, and including the natural gas network in Hawke's Bay. So, and do a number of other things, including running a increasingly big Askearn business. And on the board, joined by Andrew Gibbs, and I was part of the Hawke's Bay Regional Recovery Agency after the cyclone. So, and I've done a lot in the primary sector space, horticulture, agriculture, and so forth. And so I've got a pretty wide background there. On the Economic Development Agency, the interim board, as we are, there's Andrew Gibbs, a retired Deloitte partner, lives in Central Hawke's Bay, grew up in Central Hawke's Bay, and Mecca Faiteri, again, grew up in Hawke's Bay, now pretty much resident in Gisborne. One of the first things we did was continue a process that had been started. We'll finish a process which was to appoint a CEO, and this is Richard Briggs, who's the interim CEO, and he will introduce himself.
Kia ora, everyone. Richard Briggs. I've been in the role 9 days, and I've met so many people. I was just saying to John, I need to start taking photos and putting names at the bottom of all the people I've met, so I've been made very welcome. I'm a Hawke's Bay boy, born and bred in Napier. My mum, brother and sister still reside in Green Meadows. I had my first real job in Napier. I was an auditor, and I audited Napier City Council, so I know one of those really sexy roles. Did that for 10 years. I've worked for Fonterra in New Zealand and offshore in very commercial roles, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And then after Fonterra, I worked for Hamilton City Council as the Chief Financial Officer for a couple of years, and then as the Chief Executive for 7 years. Still passionate about the Bay, and then when the opportunity arose to come back and make a contribution, I jumped at it and was lucky enough to secure the role. And so here I am. The interim nature of it doesn't mean I'm half-time here. I'm pretty much committed to making a difference and meeting people. Well, there's a lot of people to meet. It's been really worthwhile. Been out from working here for 30 odd years, lots changed, and so it's quite good to be refreshed. There's a lot to learn.
And the interim board, we were appointed from the 14th of June after the previous board resigned en masse and the CEO left. CEO, to her real credit, gave us a really comprehensive briefing of where she was at and a whole bunch of notes on how to succeed and how to take things forward, and made very professional arrangements for the incoming board. So we're incredibly grateful to her for the way she handled that. We were given a brief which is to run the ongoing businesses or activities of the recovery, Economic Development Agency, including the Te Rei Centre in Hastings. And secondly, there were 3 projects that were underway, one of them on roading infrastructure, particularly State Highway 2 to Wairoa, a review of the fermentation opportunities that might be conducted out of Food East or the fermentation scene, and a review on tourism, which is not intended to review the performance of Hawke's Bay tourism, but to look at tourism as an economic development opportunity in its own right and what can be achieved in that space. So those projects were underway. We were given a very clear instruction that we're not allowed to start any more projects, which is fine because we're only appointed for 6 to 9 months. So on the other hand, if we see anything that's compelling, we can go to the Matariki Governance Group and they'll say yes or no. So we're not limiting our thinking, but the task is to do those 3 things and see them through to a conclusion. And the third thing really is to prepare a recommendation or some recommendations to the Matariki Governance Group on what an economic development organisation, or the current one, might look like in the future and how it might operate. And the first leg of that is regional priorities and trying to get agreement on that as to, what is going to make a difference for Hawke's Bay. We're underway with that. The Recovery Agency and the Economic Development Agency were jointly charged with coming up with a recommendation on regional priorities for Matariki Governance Group. I think that's broadly a summary of what we're doing. So, yeah. We can tell you a lot more about any of that, or you can ask the questions that are on your minds.
Cool. Should we do a quick round and an introduction as well in the first instance, and then open up for any questions that you might have? So we'll start with you, GK.
Graham Taylor, Yarrowdale Ward Councillor. Interesting, the people you've worked with. Ian Boyd, was he you?
Yeah, knew Ian very well.
Yeah, he was my captain in the Hastings Boys High First 15.
Okay. Well, just to prove it's New Zealand, he was trained in his early forestry career by a fellow called Cookie Lachlan in Taupo, who was my father's cousin.
Yeah, and my brother was with Richmond, I think, Bruce.
Okay, yeah, Bruce Taylor, yeah. Ran Takapau and then Otaki.
Yeah.
Remember him well.
So we know each other well.
Have a good one. Yeah, that's awesome. Kia ora, Sally Crown. I'm Nelson Park Ward Councillor, second term. My portfolio is economic development, so I've been very interested in meeting you guys and having you come and speak to us. And since we're doing the degrees of separation, I really appreciate your wife being part of the same women's networking group as I, so that we often come out to Askern and enjoy your hospitality. So thank you very much.
Richard McGrath, Onikawa Tamatea Ward Councillor. If we're doing the 2 degrees of separation, used to work down the end of Omahu Road at a meatworks there and ex-Timona. And you said you had a brother and sister in town. Is one of them named Vivian?
Yes.
Knocked on your mother's door the other day.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
She told him.
That close.
Kia ora, Juliet Gregg. I'm another Nelson Park Ward councillor. The degrees of separation, I'm from Christchurch, so I don't know if anyone's got any relationship with Christchurch.
My wife grew up there. She
There you go.
was born at Askern in Yorkshire, England, but grew up in New Brighton.
There you go.
Hi, Keith Price. I'm Ahuriri Ward. I'm pretty shy and quiet compared to all this lot.
Don't believe a word he says.
Kia ora, Annette Brosnan, Deputy Mayor in my 4th term, Onikawa Tamatea Ward Councillor as well. 2 degrees of separation. My sister-in-law is Mandy Lawton, who I think is connected to your family as well. And you, at my brother and sister-in-law's wedding, Askern did all the wine and it was beautiful as always.
Kia ora, you've met me, Louise CE, here at Napier. I won't attempt to try and work out if we've got relations, unless you're from North London.
We've met, Richard and I have already compared school stories. So, and across to Rhonda.
Rhonda Crystal, I'm Taranaki Ward Councillor, live in Green Meadows. I think my boys went to school with some Briggses, so at Taranaki Primary, Crystal. Yeah. And we own a dairy farm in Tutera, but it was a sheep and cattle farm when I grew up. So yeah, both things ticked off there, and I'm part of the business group, know Catherine and the Fluty wine very well.
I think we've all drunk a lot of your wine.
We need every drop drunk.
Yeah, I'm Nigel Simpson. I'm Taradale Ward Councillor, end of my second term.
Right, thanks everybody. So, any questions? Yep. Sally. Thank you. Through the mayor. My question, the 6 to 9 months that the interim, what do you expect to actually deliver against those 3 sort of workflows in that time period?
Okay, the business as usual activities, I'd expect the function centre to continue to operate successfully, for there to be no health and safety disasters. And we've, done our first walkthrough and looked at evacuation procedures and all the things that you do in that. So, run successfully and financially improved. I think it's structurally impaired from being financially successful, but reduced hemorrhage would be a nice outcome in that time. I think the commercial arrangements make it very difficult for it to be profitable, I think. So that's my first observation there, but I've yet to do, I'm going to take apart all the financials, or possibly get Richard to do it, and just have a look at that. So that's the first thing in that area. The 3 projects I think should be capable of being delivered. I see no reason why they shouldn't be. The third one is the really interesting one. I mean, Hawke's Bay's had several goes at economic development entities over a period of time. I've been part of one of them. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm doing it, this job, because I'd like to see it done better than it's ever been done before and actually succeed. I look at some of the regions that do it well, and I've been close to some of them. I understand why I think some of them work, and so we would see that we would prepare, I think, a range of choices for the Matariki governance group, and say, if I look at the Economic Development Association or organisation, agency as any entity from the outside, I see a body with modest resourcing that tried to provide thought leadership on a bunch of issues. That's a fairly limited function. I think there is the next sort of stage. You could have a slightly larger organisation that tries to draw as much money out of government for various purposes as possible and engage differently with government and try and generate a lot of activity. I'm not expecting the territorial local authorities or the regional council to put a lot more money into it, so probably means taking a bit more risk, which is challenging in a limited liability company because you've got duties, solvency duties as a director, but sort of back yourself to hire the people to get the money to pay for the people for, at a government kind of so that has some risks around it, but you can, I think, judiciously manage those. And the third option could be something bigger and spend more and potentially achieve more, and the Matariki governance group can then say, look, we're happy with the small one, or we'll give them a range of choices and say, these are the things, these are the ways you might structure it, and this is what you might achieve by doing so. And which one do you want? Because I think very much, I mean, looking at some of the issues and some of the regional priorities, that there are some quite diverse views on issues, if you like. One of the big issues in this part of Hawke's Bay is water security. It's particularly big in the Hastings district. And, you've got the regional council, and the science says that they have over-allocated the water take. And when you've over-allocated it, there's one thing you can do in the short run, which is get some back. And in the long run, you can try and create some more by storage. But that takes time and money. So they're doing the taking the water back thing and saying, some people have got more than they need, which is, a responsible way to solve that problem. Same time, some of the people who don't draw very much water and are being capped at their existing land use, like vineyards and Bridge Par, if their fruit is no longer required by anybody, if they're an independent grower and there are no buyers for their fruit, they can't change their land use because they've got the lowest possible allocation. So they can't use more water to do different things. It's just not permitted. So they've got that. But regional council's got one bunch of issues. Hastings ratepayers have got another bunch of issues, and Wairau tell us they get a third of the water that falls on Hawke's Bay, and it falls fairly reliable, and they haven't got a problem, so they don't see it as a priority. So that kind of, and probably all of them are right. So there's a bunch of challenges working through those things to come up with what are the, because we have to, I think, have a cohesive set of priorities to have, because the organisation needs to focus. And one of my sayings I use quite often is lots of priorities actually means no priorities. So we have to work our way through some of those things. So, but I'd see us making some recommendations. And finally, at the end of that period, I see us doing a quality handover to whoever takes over. And my personal view is there should be some continuity to do that. As you would hope in business and council situations, that you don't change everybody at once, because there is it's been quite interesting, sort of stepping in the admin stuff you have to do to keep the organisation going is far bigger than you think. You need to change all the bank signatories. Today I had to go into Telecom and change the account owner for some of our telephone stuff, from Alistair McLeod to me. I have to hand that on to someone else in due course. So there's all that sort of stuff. But kind of would like that I always think if somebody makes a recommendation of what might work, it's always good to put them in the spotlight and say, make it work. Hold them to account for delivering their recommendations. But that'll be something that'll be decided on in due course. But those are the outputs that I see from the organisation. Richard, do you want to add to that?
No.
Well played, Richard. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to sort of tease that out a little bit more, John, I think it would be fair to say that part of the frustration of the previous board and chief executive was the governance framework and sort of the I guess perhaps lack of clarity and understanding of reporting, reporting lines and how the councils fitted into that as opposed to the PSGEs, and then you've got the matariki and how that all interplayed together. As part of your mandate to also take a look at that, or not really?
Well, there's been a review done of the Matariki Governance Group anyway, so we need to make sure our whatever we recommend is consistent with that. Look, there were... I wasn't close to why the previous board all resigned, I think there was some issues around those relationships, and there were some issues around the fact that the recovery agency was asked to do a bunch of non-recovery things that the Economic Development Agency felt they should have been asked to do. And they're probably right. They probably should have been asked to do those things. I kind of feel that a couple of things in that space. Firstly, we are dealing with public money from various councils, and we've got to be accountable to the councils for the use of that money as the councillors are to their ratepayers. So the fact that we have 4 territorial local authorities and the regional council means that we've got 5 paying stakeholders, and we have to, we have to meet their expectations. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you're in the wrong job. So that's. I think they also felt that they got fitted into the Tere facility, and that wasn't the best use of an economic development agency, but, kind of, life does that. You don't always get what you want. Nobody wanted the cyclone, and we got it. You get stuff that you don't want, and if you're in the role, you deal with it. And so there was a bit of that. Kind of think they didn't. Ultimately, you're most successful managing your stakeholders when you're successful at what you want to do. That success buys you time, gives you space, and lets you get on with it. And I'm not sure they ever got in front of the game, and I think that was also part of the issue. So, it is what it is. Let's just recognise that we are accountable to 5 paying bodies. We're accountable to the PSGs. If there are issues we think we were being pulled in too many directions, it's our job to flag that to the Matariki governance group and resolve it.
Yeah, and thank you, because I guess that's sort of the crux of what I was asking. I wasn't expecting you to make comments on the previous board, but more around that Matariki structure and the challenges that presents to the governance board, whether it be your previous role on the RRA board or the REDA board, because I do think that it is quite a challenging environment to work within. And I guess just sort of flagging that as part of what you're working through over the next 6 to 9 months, if there was some recommendations or ideas around that about how to mitigate those challenges, that would be really useful.
Yeah. Look, I'm used to working in complex situations, and if you look at, say, the kiwifruit industry and Zespri, it's a single desk for selling export. So all the growers are stuck with Zespri, and Zespri's stuck with all the growers. In the meat industry, if a farmer didn't like you or you didn't particularly like them, there were ways that they could go to someone else, and you weren't stuck with each other. In the kiwifruit industry, everybody's stuck together, and there are no commercial outlets for frustration, so there's industry politics become the outlet for frustration. So that's just part of the baggage that you carry, and the more you perform, the more you neutralise the politics. Kind of as how I see it, and that's that's a forum that has its complexities, it has its challenges. That's just part of what you sign up for. May well mean that people don't all stick around for long periods of time, and as fresh people come in, you get exhausted by the challenges. Well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But, at the end of the day, the government is looking to deal with the region as a region on a number of issues, and we will succeed by dealing with them on the basis that they want to deal with us, and will be ignored by them if we try to deal with another issue. And I think the Ngāpuhi settlement's a classic example of that. The government set a set of rules, this is how we'll settle with you, and people are saying, no, we're not going to play by those rules, and they're miles away from a settlement as best I can tell, and, you know, others have done it years ago, so, you know, we just got to recognise that, and, you know, the different parts of Hawke's Bay will have different issues, but there'll be the same issues that run through some areas, like the ongoing success of the meat industry in, you know, dry stock farming affects all the regions. You know, all the 4 areas. Wairoa's got a meatworks, Takapau's got a meatworks. There's one at there's one in Hastings. There's one in Whakatū Pacific. They employ a lot of people out of Napier. There are tanneries in Napier and pet food factories that are fed by those in Napier. So, you know, there's a big pet food factory in Waipak as well. So, you know, the success of that industry is fun. You know, and you know that industry is not succeeding, and that is why farms are going into forests. So there's a whole bunch. You know, there's issues where we've all got a common interest in.
Any further questions? Oh, I'm sure we'll be seeing a bit of you over the balance of the year and the first quarter of next year. Really look forward actually to, you know, you reporting back to us in terms of, you know, as you work your way through those 3 streams of priorities. And
yeah, the third one's the big one. We're quite keen to get that on the table early, so that there's as much time to implement whatever changes as possible. As soon as the earlier we can reach some decisions, the more time we've got to implement them. Implement them well.
excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, coming in to see us and introduce yourselves. And the doors are always open. You're always welcome to contact us if you've got any questions or would like some input from us on anything. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
we're done.